Welcome to my presentation, Bantu, the Human Language Genetics. In this presentation, I will go over the development of human beings and human history. In my first presentation, I stated that humans descended from Australopithecines. After further research and thought, I have concluded otherwise. Australopithecines were the niche ape of the Great Rift Valley who were forced to walk due to habitat change 6.3 million years ago. They were eventually hunted to extinction by humans around 1.5 million years ago. My initial analysis of 6 ancient peoples was also wanting and lacking. Despite my initial mistakes, I am satisfied with the rate and quality of my corrections. Human beings are great ape family members along with gorillas, pongos, chimpanzees, orangutans, and gibbons. The tree of life fractal began a very long time ago, and a complex yet understandable series of events has occurred. An interaction between elemental physics, geography, geology, weather, cosmic dynamics, temperature, biology, and random events have shaped us and the world we live in. Primates and pre-monkeys developed between 67 and 100 million years ago. 67 million years ago, a cosmic impact dusted the planet with iridium, and most of the dinosaurs became extinct. During Antarctica's geological separation from Australia around 50 million years ago, a complex global cooling pattern related to deep cold water ocean currents began. The global cooling trend is characterized by sharp cooling followed by slow warming. The beginning of this cooling trend around 50 million years ago coincides with the beginning of winter as a season. Ice ages, volcanic activity occur in their own cycles independently of the global cooling trend. The first warming period in the global cooling trend began approximately 45 million years ago and ended 37 million years ago when a cosmic impact flung lava halfway around the planet. Volcanic activity beginning around 36 million years ago begins the second period of global warming in the global cooling trend. Between 31 and 30 million years ago, the Great Rift Valley in Africa began opening and the Arabian microcontinent began separating from Africa. Also around 30 million years ago, a sea gap opened between Australia and Antarctica, and the cold circumantarctic current began to flow. The beginning of the circumantarctic current coincides with the beginning of the third global cooling period in the global cooling trend. By 29 million years ago, snow and ice accumulations caused a major drop in sea level, which affected large areas of habitat. Global cooling changes the weather by decreasing rainfall. The cooling disturbance between 30 and 29 million years ago began the development of new types of monkeys in Africa and Arabia. The continuingly widening sea gap between Australia and Antarctica allowed warm water to mix with the circumantarctic current, and by about 28 million years ago, the circumantarctic current warmed up enough to begin the third period of global warming in the global cooling trend. Around 25 million years ago, global weather patterns stabilized significantly. This stable period leads to the development of grass plants in North America. Grass requires about 1/3 of the amount of water trees require to survive. Grass spread by land from North America to Asia and Europe. Around 20 million years ago, the Arabian microcontinent geologically collided with Eurasia, and it is during this period, between 21 and 20 million years ago, that apes developed from monkeys. During a single ice age cycle, the grass plants, which were not in Africa, moved from Eurasia to Arabia and Africa. Large areas of grass and new habitat appeared which had not existed before. The type of monkeys which had lived on the fringe of this new habitat moved in and developed into apes between 21 and 20 million years ago. Apes spread in Africa and Arabia between 17 and 20 million years ago. Major volcanic activity in western North America began around 16.5 million years ago, and this coincides with the beginning of the fourth global cooling period in the ongoing global cooling trend. The cooling, drying weather conditions, possibly combined with drought or wildfire, substantially altered large areas of habitat in Africa and Arabia. Existing ape populations were forced to survive by walking more often between trees. All apes show a degree of forward movement of the thumb on the foot from walking. Humans are the only living great apes to develop a big toe from excessive walking. Human beings developed from multiple ape populations in Africa and Arabia during the global cooling period 16.5 to 14 million years ago. Volcanic activity releasing greenhouse gases 14 million years ago begins the fourth global warming period in the global cooling trend. The beginning of the warming period 14 million years ago increased rainfall and stabilized habitat zones. In the great ape family, similar biological development has corresponded to genetic compatibility. The many types of humans, including pygmies, which developed between 16.5 and 14 million years ago, remain genetically compatible to this day. Human beings did not form from a single population. The human population and the formation of human beings was an event which occurred multiple times in different places. For a rough example, say there were 50 types of great apes 16.5 million years ago. 40 out of 50 turned into humans, and the other 10 represent the few great apes that did not change into human beings. Multiple different ape types changed into humans along large habitat zones in Africa and Arabia 16.5 million years ago. Original human populations formed during habitat changes, and new homogenized populations had a limited time window to interact with older and newer genetics. Once this initial development and interaction period was over, all base human genetic fractal types were set. Base fractal types interact with other types in a very limited way over time. The base human fractal types, which developed between 16.5 and 14 million years ago, were stabilized 14 million years ago by the beginning of the fourth global warming period in the global cooling trend. The warming weather and increased rainfall beginning 14 million years ago stabilized world habitats and ended the period of human development from apes. Some apes continued to develop independently of humans, and around 10 million years ago, orangutans developed in India as the ancient tropical forest belts separated. Gibbons and orangutans and a few other apes became isolated from Arabia as habitats shrunk 11 to 10 million years ago. Between 14 and 11 million years ago, human populations in Africa and Arabia did not migrate very much. Crossbreeding between ancient human types was mostly related to bunching and habitat edge contact. Global habitat changed in many areas over the past 50 million years related to the global cooling trend. As glaciers and ice accumulated in the polar regions, deserts grew in many areas. At the edge of deserts or grasslands, the ancient forests slowly receded as rainfall very subtly and slowly decreased in many areas over the last 50 million years. Between 14 and 11 million years ago, human populations in Arabia and North Africa were affected most by habitat change. Whatever they were living on, bugs, plants, or animals, disappeared. Even though large areas of habitat may have remained intact, there was partial or total ecosystem component failure. As some habitats changed, ecosystem components may have failed because of reserve population failures, permanent population migrations, or symbiotic losses. Human populations' base genetic fractals in many areas indicate a concentration of similar genetics and a genetic spread event before most of the single human cross-type populations formed between 11 and 6.3 million years ago. By 6.3 million years ago, humans were grouped in different areas, and these large areas are related to some modern ethnic descriptions. Populations in northwest Africa living in the Atlas Mountain region were exposed to high levels of light from mountain glaciers. In relation to the light levels that these humans were exposed to, many different ancient human types developed slanted eyes and eyelid fold covers. Weather changes and geography in North Africa and Arabia had the most effect on the physical changes in ancient human types, specifically exposure to glaciers and snow, exposure to deserts, and exposure to different levels of light. The majority of human populations 6.3 million years ago were composed of mostly base ancient populations with a few crosses or no crosses and a few cross-type populations. The drying up of the Mediterranean Ocean 6.3 million years ago would begin the first major migrations of humans, as large areas of habitat in Africa and Arabia disappeared. The events leading to the 6.3 million year migrations are as follows. Although the period of 14 to 6.3 million years ago is globally a warm period, glaciers spread in Antarctica, North America, and Eurasia. Between 14 and 11 million years ago, even as global average temperatures increased, the eastern Antarctic ice sheet grew to its present size. After the stabilization evident by the ice sheet growth ending in Antarctica 11 million years ago, glaciation slowly spread to Alaska by 9 million years ago. Between 11 and 6.3 million years ago, the Great Eurasian Ice Sheet formed. The draining of the Mediterranean for the first time during an ice age cycle 6.3 million years ago began the first major human migrations. Out of Africa and Arabia traveled a group made up of several different human types. These types migrated to India, Southeast Asia, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Polynesia, and preserved linguistic, genetic, behavioral, and historical information independent of Africa and Arabia. The 6.3 million year migrations produced many contacts between different types of ancient humans. Before I discuss human cross types, I will show some pictures of people and skulls and discuss a few of the different ancient human types. This will be continued on part 2.